Hey guys, welcome to Poor Man Mods. Today in this episode, we finally opened up a can of worms. A can of worms that we kind of started last year. If you remember, pretty much exactly a year ago, I put out a video building up the bottom end of the 2JZ that I took out of my IS300 after I 1UZ swapped it. Now the plans for that built bottom end 2JZ is to go underneath the head of this 1JZ. Now this has been a plan in the works for a couple years now. So I figured if I'm going to 1.5J this Supra, it's been like 12 years since this engine has been out of the car. If I'm going to go down this road, I might as well, go down the rabbit hole and open up a can of worms. And that's what this video is all about. In this video, we get the 1J pulled. Well, let me start out by saying this episode is in no way a step-by-step of anything. More just a video of me opening a can of worms. We get this engine pulled and we paint the engine bay and go down the rabbit hole. Start the process. It is going to be quite the journey. This video has been in the works now for quite a few months. If you follow me on Instagram, you have seen the updates, but no one yet has seen the color of the engine bay. This has been a debate for quite a while on what my color choice has been, and I did reach out to a friend of mine for their opinion because it was a tough choice to make, and we'll get to that later in the video. But for starters, we did have to yoink out this 1JZ, and for my case, it was pretty easy because there wasn't a whole lot holding this thing in. A lot of the wiring and sensors has been removed, and mechanically, I removed a lot of that stuff too. There just wasn't a whole lot holding this engine in. It was a pretty basic setup, and it was very easy to remove. So I don't know if it's been like this for a year or 12 years or what. Look at this alternator wire. It's like fried fucking chicken and exposed copper right here. Hell yeah. That is bad. Melted the loom back here. Literally bare copper right there. And I wasn't blowing fuses or anything. Like, I showed no signs of an issue. That wire had been no problem to me, and this car had driven across the country and back, down to Atlanta and back. And this car had been completely reliable for the last few years. And I was thinking long and hard on when that wire could have been damaged. And I'm pretty sure back in 2014 is when that wire got shorted. My old turbo oil feed line touched the positive post on the alternator and it shorted out. And then it actually ruptured the oil feed line and I had to replace the oil feed line. But I think when that happened, it drew so much current through that wire, it damaged the wire, but it had been hidden and I didn't see it. And it had been a problem since 2014. And it hadn't given me any symptoms. I don't know, of all the electrical problems I've had with this car, how did that not give me any problems? Freaking amazing. Should I repair it or put it back in the car the way it is? But I figured since this engine is out and it's been 12 years since this engine bay has had no engine in it, I might as well give it some attention, some much needed attention. Yeah. My bad. My bad. It's because I tried, but the drain plug on there, that guy is really fucked up. There was some rust that I wanted to fix where the original battery tray was. It looks like maybe with the previous owner, that maybe the battery exploded. There was some pretty bad rust going on, so I decided to cut out that rust, and I didn't have a good MIG welder. For the longest time, I've only had a TIG welder and a really crappy flux core MIG, so I reached out to my friends at Harbor Freight, and we got a really nice titanium MIG 140 for this job, And we used that titanium MiG 140 to stitch weld in this patch panel, and then we used a little bit of seam sealer. And in my opinion, it came out really, really good, especially for my first MiG project. You know, I've been TIG welding for quite a while, but this really was my first MiG project. And of course, I did use that titanium MiG 140 to patch up a few other holes in the engine bay. I didn't do a full shave with this engine bay. That's not something that I really cared to do with this. I did want to clean up the engine bay a little bit. Wanted to make it a little bit nicer and not as beat up, but I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole of shaving it. I didn't want to tuck the wiring. Filled a couple really ugly, unnecessary holes with that welder and just did some very minor shaving, and I think it came out pretty good. And in any spot where there was rust, whether I removed it completely or got most of it removed, wherever there was rust, before I did any kind of paint work, I did use Eastwood's rust encapsulator just to give the paint the best chance of adhesion and longevity. I actually really like the way this stuff laid. I do have it in aerosol and brush on. So as for painting the engine bay, I really had a hard time deciding on what to do with this engine bay. As you can see with the car, I am no stranger to taking risks with anything. Driving the car across country, putting white wheels on the car, putting homemade bash bars on the car, doing other sketchy stuff, having a sink pipe for an upper radiator hose. I am no stranger to taking risks. So when it came to painting the engine bay, I really was torn. I wasn't sure to do something risky like white, a metallic white, something just really beautiful and stand out in your face, but risky, or maybe do something black. Now, black isn't really, you know, a risky color. It's kind of safe. Or should I just stick with the factory red? I really was torn on what to do. So I reached out to my friend who I think some of you probably know, Faye Hadley. She has a lot more attention to detail than I do, and a bit more experience with MK3 Supras and Supras in general with different colored engine bays. So I asked for her opinion on what I should do with my engine bay. And this is what she had to say.
This is a tough one, but here's what I'm gonna recommend. As someone with a crazy colored engine bay, that I love, by the way, and also a crazy colored face, don't mind this, I got hit in the face playing hockey last night, so it is what it is. But as someone with a crazy colored engine bay, I'm actually not gonna recommend any pearl or flake or even gloss that you cannot easily replicate. I would actually recommend sticking to the factory color and maybe even just like a mattified version of that like you always find in engine bays, and make it like a single stage. And here's the reason why. If I do any damage to my engine bay paint, which I have, there's a couple chips in there, I cannot easily go back and repaint it. I don't even know how to make the color that I made because I kept on like adding in more sparkle and more flake, and it would be a challenge to replicate it. But on this customer car behind me, there is some really hideous engine bay paint, and I was able to just get something easily off the shelf and respray it, and you would never know that it wasn't factory. I don't think. Anyway, I think it did a really good job. So that's what I recommend to you. I mean, isn't your MK3 Supra red? I'm pretty sure there's like a duplicolor perfect match that you can buy at AutoZone that you could just spray and touch it up. So that would be my suggestion. That would be my suggestion, coming from somebody who really, really loves their engine bay, but regrets that I can't go back and fill in some of the holes that I'm no longer using, if that makes sense. Like, I can't modify it or touch it up. It is what it is, and that's the downside of going that route. So, I don't know. Hope this helps.
Faye, thank you so much for taking the time and making that video. And this is why I asked you, because I didn't even think about, you know, the repairability in the future. Like, doing a crazy color, I didn't even think about how difficult it could be in the future to do a touch-up or repair. That didn't even cross my mind. So I am glad I asked you, because that's something I didn't even think about. So I am gonna take about 98% of your advice. I think red is the best choice. You're totally right about that. You can't go wrong with the bright, brilliant red of this car. It looks so freaking good. And, you know, like you said, the repairability, I didn't even think about that, and I think that is a brilliant point. I do have plenty of red on hand because I have painted the car red, and I will be doing more red in the future, but I am a glossy boy. I am going to do it in gloss because I have a ton of gloss on hand, and I will be doing more in the future. But that goes along with the repairability because since I will have gloss on hand, if I have to do touch-up work, I will have everything all ready to do it. But I do prefer the gloss over like the matte or satin finish. So I'm taking like 98% of your advice. So seriously, thank you so much for your advice, and your engine bay looks absolutely amazing. Seriously, that color is incredible. So with all that, let's get to spraying some paint. All right, you guys ready for this? Look at that engine bay. It looks so freaking good. Way better than I was expecting. Can you believe that this was done with cans? Freaking cans. Holy crap. It looks better than the rest of the car. A lot of the stuff in the front, this stuff here, I've been painting with the epoxy black paint. This VHT epoxy paint. None of this stuff will be visible, or most of it won't be visible. So pretty much everything that's not engine bay, I've just been doing that VHT epoxy black. Looking pretty darn good. I did get new horns as well, because the factory horns kind of fell apart and broke and went to crap. Did a little bit of experimenting too with some powder coating. This bracket needed cleaned up, and used this prismatic powder Dirty Magic color. Doesn't really match, but when the fuse box is on there, a lot of it will be covered, and it won't be seen a whole lot. A lot of it will be covered, so took a risk on the color, but I do actually really like it. Doesn't go completely with the red, but wanted to take a little bit of a risk with it, and we'll see how it looks with everything in the bay. If it looks out of place, I can easily make it black, but wanted to have a little bit of fun with it, and so far I'm happy with it. Patch panel turned out really well. Looks pretty darn good. And this hole looks so much better too. So much better than it did before. Looks really good. Nice and solid. Harbor Freight welder did a great job stitch welding this. Super happy with how this turned out. Nice and flat. Very solid. Very happy with that. And took a little bit of a gamble here too. Took apart my wiper motor and painted that. Painted it to match the body. Took a little bit of a risk there. Most people paint it black. I decided to do a little bit different and paint it red. I don't love it, but I also don't hate it. It kind of hides it, which is cool. I'm happy with it so far. The engine bay looks absolutely amazing. It looks way better than I was expecting. So freaking good. It looks better than the rest of the car, which is a good problem to have. Now I have to decide if I'm going to paint the rest of the car or not. And I am very excited to announce my latest product and service for FredTech USA, and that is custom data plates for the firewall of the MK3 Supra. This is going to be the cherry on top for this engine bay, and it looks so freaking good. I currently have two options, stainless steel and black powder coated aluminum. They both look so freaking good. The stainless steel gives you a nice OEM looking finish, and the black powder coat stands out and looks so freaking good. The black powder coated that I have in my engine bay is just the cherry on top and looks so freaking good. I am so happy with the way it turns out. So the holes that I have in these data plates are 5mm for 5mm bolts, and it attaches absolutely perfect, and it looks so freaking good. So if this is something that you might be interested in for your MK3 Supra, a custom data plate with whatever information you might want, I'll have a link in the description down below for this. Super freaking cool, cherry on top for your engine bay. So now that the engine bay and a couple other pieces that I put on are looking absolutely amazing, I'm still deep in the rabbit hole because pretty much everything that I'm going to be putting back on the car is either going to be cleaned, reconditioned, or replaced. I've come this far. I'm basically restoring it as I go. So this is going to be quite the long process, and we're still a bit of ways from taking the cylinder head off this engine. I am anxious to do it. I cannot wait to do it, but we're not quite there yet. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you think my data plates are a cool idea. And like I said, if you're interested in one of these, check out the link in the description down below. And I will see you guys in the next video.